What's up guys, it's ALLDAYANTHONY and welcome back to a Civic vlog that you hopefully know and hopefully love, because in today's video, we're going back to the year 2000. Let's go. Alright guys, welcome back to a Honda Civic special where today we are highlighting what could be one of the lowest mileage EJ8 Honda Civic Coupes in the country. So believe it or not, this 2000 Honda Civic EX only has 34,000 miles. Yes, you heard that correctly. Not 134,000 miles, but 34,000 miles. This is owned by my friend Gabe, who picked it up a couple years ago with I think 33K on the clock. And since then, he spent a little bit of time and a little bit of money kind of restoring things and bringing it to an OEM Plus state that it currently is in now. So what I want to do today is highlight this car and how crazy it is that this survivor of a Honda Civic EX has made it 23 years without daily driver wear and tear, as well as just surviving modifications in general, which is just insane. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over the exterior of the car, the interior of the car, talk about the engine, talk about what Gabe has done to the car, and then we're going to go on a short drive and talk about what it's like driving a low mileage 2000 Civic in the year 2023. So getting into the exterior, Gabe has made a couple changes to the car over the years to get it where it is now. When he first got it, it was 100% stock, literally old lady driven, and then actually she passed away, which is kind of sad. And then her kids got the car and then they didn't know what to do with it, so they traded it into a Honda dealership up in Seattle, and then he went and picked it up with a trailer, and yeah, basically it was 100% stock and in still fantastic condition, but he knew he wanted to make some changes to kind of give it that OEM Plus look, but kind of more on the OEM side rather than the OEM Plus side. So a couple things that I note right off the bat, right? We have the OEM EM1 front lip, we have the OEM EM1 front grille, we have the color matched side skirts, which he did at a local paint shop, and then we have the OEM 99 to 2000 high spoiler. This is not an EM1 spoiler, it is a genuine Honda option that they offered for really any of the 99 to 2000 Civics, including the EX. Now on the bottom here, you can tell it's genuine because it's got the Civic logo underneath there, but outside of that, it's got the OEM mudguards on it, and then this is actually kind of unique. Very rarely have I ever seen a Civic that still has these on it. The OEM door ding fender guards, whatever the heck you want to call them. So he's got them both on the rear as well as the fronts over here. Pretty crazy, but I probably wouldn't even risk it taking these off now with how old this paint is and that it's still an original paint job. So I probably wouldn't risk it. We'll leave those on, but I thought that was just kind of a cool thing that you really don't see too often. Now, also to note on the front lip, Gabe took my advice and did the OEM S2000 lip gasket here, which I did on my Honda Civic, and I think it adds that little OEM touch that adds a little bit of contrast here between the lip and the front bumper. We also have the OEM license plate plugs here that he had paint matched to the silver, and then the other big thing to note is going to be the OEM EM1 SI wheels that he actually had refurbished here locally, and they did a fantastic job. These are kind of a tricky wheel to refinish because of kind of the texture as well as the clear coat that goes on top, but they did just a phenomenal job, and yeah, that just looks awesome. But what's really crazy is the fact that the OEM window moldings here have survived all these years. I mean, these are actually still rubber, which is crazy because, again, most all of these have become brittle and chipped away, and you see that ugly metal underneath. But I mean, the rest of the trim on the rest of the car is just insane as well. This is like new, this is like new, these are like new. It's just, dude, it's crazy to see that this car has survived this many years, and honestly, it got into the right hands. The fact that he didn't want to just jump into doing some crazy mods and stuff, but more so preserving the car and adding a couple OEM Plus touches has just made this car so much better. So kind of a fun story on the exhaust. So when I was doing my white Honda Civic budget build, he actually picked up this car around that time, and when he got it, he was kind of going after all of the nice OEM fancy parts, and I was going after the budget parts. Now, one thing about my white car when I got it is that it was completely missing a muffler. There was literally no muffler there. And so I wanted an OEM muffler. I went to the junkyard, found a couple decent options, but we actually had a surprise care package come from Matt Mormon of Obsessed Garage with a lot of his parts that he did not put on his EM1 build, and he included this DC Sports exhaust. Now, I already had a Yonaka catback, so I didn't need one, so he was kind of interested in throwing this on his car, and he said, Anthony, you could just take my OEM muffler because it's not in perfect condition, and you can just throw that on the white Civic. And so I did that. He got the DC Sports muffler, and I just thought that was just kind of funny how things went kind of full circle like that. Now, I know some people might see that and say, Anthony, that's not OEM, he should put back on the OEM muffler, but honestly, this is that kind of extra spice that does make this car fun to drive because it does have a good exhaust note and it does keep things interesting. Now, before we lose all of our sunlight, we're going to jump into the interior here. This is hands down one of my favorite parts about this car. It is literally mint. This is something you never see, and it's just mind-boggling because it still smells like the 90s. It looks like the 90s, and this one has the more desirable Type K interior, which is that darker gray color that just kind of holds up to the test of time versus the lighter gray color as well as the tan color that came in a lot of the sedans. So jumping into this, stock seats here, we've got the OEM radio, pretty much something you never see, OEM floor mats, something you never see, OEM cup holder insert, something you never see. Look at the shifter. Look at that. It's brand new. Look at the steering wheel. All of the texture is still on the steering wheel. Look at the buttons. All of the logos are on the buttons. It's crazy. I've been in this car, I don't know, 20, 30 times, and every time I get in here, I'm just mind-boggled because of how nice this car is. All the paperwork, all the pamphlets. It's nuts. Power sunroof, power locks, power windows, power mirrors, dimmer here, AC works beautifully, it's ice cold. I mean, this is just something you never see. I mean, another thing, look at that. Rear seats, mint, absolutely freaking mint. At this time, most of these have cigarette burns, tears in them, rips in them. They're all faded up at the top where it's baked out in the sun and all sorts of stuff. But this car is literally a time capsule, dude. It's nuts. OEM rear mats. I don't even think I've seen OEM rear Honda Civic Coupe mats, which is just incredible. The headliner here, perfect. Not a tear, not a scratch, not a cigarette burn. In everything in here, all the clickiness, the shifter, all of this stuff still feels new. It's crazy. Now for the part that many of you want to see, the engine. Other than one noticeable thing, this thing is 100% stock. Incredible. And I'm sure that thing is, yes, the blue NGK spark plug wires. But other than that though, insane. No intake, no headers, no weird wiring, no weird tubing, colored crap, silicone, nothing. The belts are still in amazing shape. It's just nuts to see this. It really, really is. I mean, the only thing I'd really change in here is probably swap out the blue spark plug wires back to black, clean it up, dress it, and call it good. Just nuts, man. OEM VIN, OEM VIN. I know the bumper has the OEM VIN on it. OEM VIN there on the hood. Just crazy. So much potential, right? Most people would see this and think, that's gotta go. Or there's a lot of potential here. We can boost this car because it's only got 34,000 miles. It'll take it. I mean, my mind just kind of boggles when I see something like this. And I'm sure many of you are thinking the same thing. Last but not least here, before we go on our drive, trunk here, perfect condition. Carpet's in perfect condition. This cardboard piece here usually has a bunch of stains on it. Perfect condition. Spare tires under there. All the pop clips are in place. This plastic is perfect as well. OEM VIN, OEM VIN, All right, so with having a little bit of light left, we're gonna go for a quick drive, and I'm gonna give you guys my final thoughts here. It's crazy seeing something like this in person. Driving it may be another story, who knows? It could be maybe a little bit boring, it could be underwhelming, or it could be a total blast from the past. 34,000 mile, 2000 Honda Civic Coupe here. Key goes in. Sounds about right to me. Ooh. That exhaust note is actually pretty good. I've actually never heard it from inside the car, so nice. Maybe a little droney, but we're gonna see. Seatbelt still has all of its retractability. That's something that I don't think my car has as much of, but look how fast that goes down. Look at that. Crazy. All right, so dude, this transmission, total slot box, but the smoothest slot box. The clutch feels brand new, obviously. I mean, I press this thing in, it's butter. That's like the easiest clutch I've ever pressed in my life. Grab points kind of up to actually towards the top there. I've gotten so used to the notchiness of my Honda Civic shifter that feeling this actually feels good. Like, it's not a bad thing. It's actually like kind of nice for a daily driver. Everything feels pretty smooth. Suspension feels pretty good. Obviously, I'm sitting a lot higher. The seat's sitting a lot higher. And the steering definitely feels not as tight, right? I think the second you lower a Honda Civic, the second you put on your adjustable camber kits, and then you get the car aligned to your spec, get the right tires, get the right wheels on here, I mean, the steering will feel much more responsive. Because in this, yeah, I'm rolling around. The seats don't help either. It's a tough decision with a car like this, because yeah, it's got low mileage, but it's not necessarily an EM1 where 34,000 miles is going to make a huge difference on an EM1. It's a Civic EX that was meant to be a commuter. It was meant to get higher mileage at this point. This car is probably meant to have 234,000 miles, but the fact that it wasn't commuted with, it was driven, maintained, and then essentially stored for this many years is pretty wild. So I think that would be a tough decision to make. It's do you drive it? Do you not drive it? Do you modify it? Do you keep it stock? I think this is like the perfect starting point that most people would want for an unmolested Civic that has a straight body, that they could K-swap, that they could turbo, that they could, I mean, do so many different things to. Or on the other hand, you don't do anything and you enjoy it for what it is and you drive it. Or on the other hand, you store it away forever and you don't let anybody ever see it or touch it. Now, I guess another thing to touch up on is probably what this car is realistically worth. I know roughly kind of what Gabe paid for it, and I think he got a really good deal on it, but what is it actually worth nowadays, right? To an enthusiast like myself, this car could be worth a ton, right? If this was the exact spec I wanted, if there was everything about this car that I wanted, I would probably be willing to pay quite a bit. Or if you get somebody that has crazy sentimental value for a car like this, and maybe a silver 2000 Civic EX was their first car and they want to relive that, they would probably pay a pretty decent chunk for it. But to most other people out there, they would go, you know, cool story, bro. It's a low mileage Honda Civic EX. You know, it's better than a DX, it's better than an HX, but it still may not be considered a true EM1 SI, so that may be one of those kind of factors when it comes to pricing. But regardless, this car shares the same body as an EM1. It shares the same suspension design as an EM1. It shares literally quite everything minus the B16, some sway bars, and some strut bars. But other than that, has all the same amount of welds, has all the same amount of everything else. So it's like, it's a great starting point for anybody that would want to do a swap or that would want to do boost or anything like that, knowing that they have a structurally good Honda Civic that is rust free. We're going to flip around here. I don't want to put too many miles on this car because I know this thing is kind of his baby. and I don't want to rip on it too much, but I think we should probably get into a little bit of VTEC just to see if it still works, because God knows he's not doing it. So if anybody's got to do it, I mean, it's got to be me, right? Now, what I also like about this car and everything Gabe's done is that everything is 100% reversible. I actually think that he got this set of side skirts from the junkyard so he could keep his original black side skirt. So he could basically reverse this car back to 100% stock form. And I think that he might even, actually he still has the stock steelies with the hubcaps as well. So I can't get over this clutch. How smooth that is. VTEC still works, man. Not audible, but it works. So I guess the question is it worth trying to find a low mileage Honda Civic Coupe, 90s Civic, whatever it may be, in 2023? Absolutely, always, 100%. That's not even a question. I don't even know why I asked that. It's yes is always the answer. If you ever find anything under 100,000 miles of the golden era of Hondas, buy it. All right, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I know this isn't something I do too often with other people's cars, but I knew when Gabe picked up this Honda Civic that at some point I needed to make this video on this car because it is way too cool not to highlight and share with the world. Now, as far as my question for you guys, if this was your car, if you owned a 34,000 mile Honda Civic EX, what would be your plan? Would you keep it as is? Would you store it? Would you not drive it? Would you drive it every day? Would you boost it? Would you swap it? I'm really curious to know what you guys would do in the position with this car, because I don't know what I would do. It's so clean and so mint that the hoarder inside me would probably want to preserve it and keep it this nice and just drive it on occasion. But the tuner in me is like, holy crap, you couldn't ask for a better starting point for doing something like a swap or building this into a show car. So yeah, that's my question. What would you guys do if you had a 34,000 mile Honda Civic? So anyway, I want to thank Gabe for letting me steal his car for the evening. I'm going to link his Instagram down below so you can follow the car, see what comes of it, and yeah, that's pretty much all I got for tonight. So as always, guys, if you enjoy the Honda Civic content, even if it's not mine, please make sure to give me a big thumbs up, subscribe down below for more, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. It's ALLDAYANTHONY. Peace.
Honda Civic Adventure. Hey, here she is. We have officially made it to Boise, Idaho.